but I'm driving home and I wanted to let you know some of the things I've been talking with some Cubans. Yeah, so I talked to this guy who was from Cuba, and he was basically telling me today that much everything you hear on the news is a lie and it's misinformation and it's not the real situation in Cuba, and how we should all be very cautious as what could happen when it comes to the upcoming days and weeks. And how he was telling me that $1 is now 600 Cuban pesos, which is about 3 days' salary, and that you cannot survive without money being sent to you from relatives in the United States. And you cannot buy food with what is available, because the people who are actually able to buy food a lot of times are doing it with US dollars. And how that the Cuban government has billions of dollars, and everything that passes through this comes directly from foreign investment, and this is how they do it. So if you wanted to go and have nice things, you only can buy them from what are called dollar stores, and you only can buy them with US dollars. But how do you get US dollars into Cuba when the dollar is banned in cash? Well, you have to send it to an offshore bank account and use a debit card from another country to buy those things. So what that means is the good things like gas, steak, things like that, you can't buy with the currency that is provided within the country. So they do this to exploit the Cuban people, because the Cuban people cannot buy these things with their own money, not even shampoo. So what they have to do is have a foreigner come in and help a local Cuban buy these things. And that is how the Cuban exploits their own people and makes it impossible for them to buy essentials in the currency that is issued by the government, which is the Cuban peso. So they have to be bought with foreign currency. Then they hoard this money. This is what the Cuban friend of mine was telling me, in foreign bank accounts and in foreign investments all over the world that generate billions of dollars. And the Cuban government has this, and the money available to themselves, but they do not share with the Cuban people. He also told me he believes that the Raul Castro indictment is true, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, and every Cuban's wanting it to happen. Now, when it comes down to the militia of 1 million soldiers in Cuba, the thing is, the only people who have weapons are older Cubans who are part of the revolution. And he was telling me that the weapons are very outdated, and they're basically telling this to the media and the world so that Cuba will look like they are going to be able to defend themselves. But he was saying that the moment, troops arrive in Cuba, that Cubans are just going to give up. They're going to surrender. They don't want to go to war. They do not want to defend the country because they want it to be like a U.S. territory. And anything that you hear on the news about, like Cubans wanting the Castro regime to stay, in fact, it's not true. It is very anti what they want. They want complete freedom and liberation. Then we talked about the protests in 2021 and how Cubans were put in prison, and he said he has friends to this day, 5 years later, who are still in prison because of the protests of 2021. So he came here when he was 15, and he came here in 2017 from Cuba. Everything there is a delusion, and it's just good to know that we, as a people, may see Cuba fall within, the year. So it's good to know what's going on, and it's good to know how things are. And he was saying that people who are in Cuba right now are starving. He said that the only way that they can survive is people sending money from America. And he also told me that when he left Cuba, his family's property got confiscated, and it's no longer his. So just let that sink in. Have a good one.